Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the webinar on winter season, our sports topic webinar in advance of the area directors meeting on Saturday. If you could please, if you haven't already done so, please do mute your phone by pressing *6 to mute or unmute, and that mutes and unmutes your phone, or by using the mute function on your phone. While we certainly do want your questions and your input at various points, we want to keep the background noise to a minimum. As is noted on the screen, we are recording the webinar. If the recording comes out okay, and actually we've had a good track record with that, it'll be posted online with a link in MySOMD. We'll also be sending these slides out to everyone either tonight or tomorrow morning, and we'll dive in. We have, let's see, there we go. Several different things to go over. A lot of this is review, but we want to make sure that everyone is aware of all these items and all these issues. And then some discussion items further down the line. So the sports calendar, no, I don't expect you to be able to read that from your screen, but it is in the slide deck for your reference. We will include this updated sports calendar in the email that we send out with the slide deck. But just so that you know, in terms of things that are coming up, the bowling championships are coming up on December 6th. Then also we have our on snow time trials. There's some IUS competitions, winter games, and such. This sports calendar also has, for those that have been scheduled, has the webinar dates as well as the training and registration dates, and the dates to get forms in and that type of thing. And we'll talk about the both basketball and winter games momentarily as we look through there. We are looking to get additional, any additional area competitions. We have a few for the spring. I know a couple folks will be talking about some during the course of this call, and we'll capture some more at the area directors meeting on Saturday. But again, we'll include this out to you. We won't be doing a broad email of this calendar until after Saturday, when we expect we'll capture some additional information. So, sports management teams. We started putting these together over the course of the last year. We have currently 6 teams that are fully functioning, although we will be looking to add or supplement the membership on those, that being the golf team, flag football, powerlifting, soccer, tennis, and basketball. We are currently forming, and actually a couple of these are already in place, but we'll launch, or we'll announce all the members when we have them all set and ready to go. But forming now, between now and the end of the year, aquatics, basically the summer game sports, aquatics, athletics. Athletics will include distance running, which is held at the fall competition, bocce, cheerleading, and softball. And then during the first quarter of next year, January, February, March timeframe, we'll be forming the final batch of sports management teams for sports that we currently offer, that being kayaking, cycling, 10-pin bowling, alpine skiing, and snowshoeing. We are only forming sports management teams for those sports that we offer at the state level. Should another sport be offered or added to the state level competition roster, then we would, of course, add or work to create a sports management team. And I should also point out, although I think most folks are aware of this, those sports for which we also have interscholastic competition, the sports management teams for those sports have representatives from both the interscholastic as well as the community program. Bowling. Got to see many of you yesterday at our 4 regional bowling tournaments. We do have the championship coming up. Hopefully everyone here received the results that were emailed out early this morning, along with the advancement. This is just a reminder, a review of that. I don't think there's anything new on here, but the state competition is on December 6th, that Sunday, back at Bowl America Gaithersburg. We do have an inclement weather date, which we've been setting for the last several years, or the last couple years, I should say, after having to unfortunately cancel, I believe it was the 2013 state bowling tournament. So that inclement weather date is Sunday, December 13th. We won't be looking at whether we'll be utilizing that until we get much closer to the tournament date. Our goal would be to let everybody know, if possible, by the Friday before, but it may not be until the Saturday, depending upon what the weather situation is. We have a total of 200 spots for competitors who all will be advancing from the regional competition or the regional tournaments. 150 of those spots are filled by gold medalists, as was noted in the email this morning. And as it turns out, actually, every area who offers bowling or had bowlers at the regional tournaments has at least 3 bowlers who have already been selected amongst that 150 that are there. So every area is going to have some representation. In addition, there are 4 remaining spots currently, or 50 remaining spots currently, and we'll do a random drawing from amongst silver medalists to fill those remaining spots. In addition, we will go and create a waiting list, a prioritized waiting list, or rank ordered, to fill any spots that are turned back in by areas, or if anybody indicates ahead of time. We actually did have one person already contact us and tell us that one of their bowlers will not be able to attend, so we'll factor that in. But we will be sending no later than Wednesday night, the 19th, a listing of all the selected bowlers as well as the prioritized wait list, so that you know who you've got. You can or should, if you have your head coaches for bowling, contact the folks who have already been selected and confirm that they'll be able to attend. Because we need to know by 8 o'clock on Monday the 23rd, that's a week from tonight, whether there are any spots that you will not be able to use because someone is not going to be attending. If we need to know by the 23rd in order for us to reallocate them back out to folks, and such. Anything that's turned back in after November 23rd would basically go unused. And if we could please ask folks, if you haven't already done so, to please mute your phone. We are getting some background noise there. We certainly do want your comments and your questions, but it helps everybody else here if we have your phone muted until you wish to contribute. Then, as also has been noted and has gone out to the coaches, we have a coaches webinar on Monday, November 30th at 7 o'clock, and the link is there. We'll send a reminder with the list of folks that goes out on the 19th. For Winter Games registration deadlines here, this was all shared with the Alpine and Snowshoe coaches during the webinars we had last week. As a note, as was noted here as well on the screen, we are recording all these webinars, and the recordings for those 2 webinars have already been posted, or links to those recordings have been posted on MySOMD in the coaches section. So anybody who was unable to attend those sessions can go there and listen to the recording. And the slide decks from those are also available within the coaches section in the sport folders for those. So for Winter Games, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, just we'll highlight a couple things here. The training registration deadline, everybody here I assume is aware of that's when you have to submit all of your people who are participating in your program for that particular sport, or in this case it would be alpine skiing and snowshoeing. That would include athletes, unified partners, coaches, volunteers, etc., and establishes who is eligible to advance to Winter Games or to compete at Winter Games. If they are not registered as part of your training program by that deadline, then they are not eligible to compete at Winter Games. They can certainly participate in your program, but they wouldn't be eligible to go to Winter Games. One note there, since we have several folks here who handle the registration in GMS, the 2016 Sports Training Combined Games is created in GMS. All of your folks who had participated in something in 2015 have already been advanced. They don't have any events in there, but they're already set up or advanced into there. And your Winter Games training, as well as your basketball training for that matter, if you're starting on that, should be entered in the 2016 Sports Training Combined. Do not put it in the 2015. Otherwise, you'll just have to re-enter everything again. Then, as has been the case, on the 18th of January, that's the deadline to get, or the last date to get forms in. Certainly, as there's a reminder slide in a moment, no one should be participating. No one can participate, period. No exception. Without a medical or a volunteer application. Okay. And we do hear some background noise. I'm not sure who's chatting there. It sounds like a woman's voice. You could please mute your phone, either by pressing *6 or using your own mute function. It would be appreciated. But again, so no one's participating without a form, but we also know that there are some updated forms, or you have someone starts the program and hands it to you, and you need a little bit of time to get them to us. So you have until January 18th to get those forms in, and those forms for every participant need to be valid through the date of Winter Games, which is February the 23rd. Also note on there, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, although hopefully you're all well aware of this, that's also the date by which all coaches should have their concussion certification taken care of, as well as all your head coaches have met their sports certification requirements. Then the competition registration deadline is January 28th. That's when you need to have all your athletes' events that they are in, also scratching or deleting anybody who will not be participating in Winter Games. You've listed them in training, but they, for whatever reason, aren't going. You need to have those removed. Not just your athletes and your unified partners, but any coaches or volunteers also you should remove or delete them from Winter Games at that point. With Winter Games, there is no entry score because we capture all the entry scores at the time trials, but have them have their events and their levels, novice, intermediate, or advanced, and the events and such need to be in by then. If they're not in, they'll be deleted from Winter Games. And then for Winter Games, we also have this for Summer Games as well. There's an additional deadline, which is the opportunity for you to adjust the events in which they will compete. In Summer Games, you can send in an updated score. But for Winter Games, this is the Tuesday following the Athlete on Snow time trial weekend. And by that time, if you need to change the event levels of your athletes, you have that opportunity up until that day. Of course, they will have had to compete in or get a score from the appropriate time trial in order for you to do that. For basketball, I'm not going to read through or reiterate this, just the dates are here for you as well. Similar deadlines again. Training registration deadline is January 21st. Again, put this into GMS, the 2016 Sports Training Combined. Excuse me. Last date to submit forms is February the 2nd. And again, they would need to be valid through the last date of the state basketball tournament, which is April 3rd. And then finally, the competition registration deadline is the 18th of February. As we have done in the past, there'll be and Melissa will go over this with the basketball coaches tomorrow night when the basketball coaches preseason webinar is held. But they'll be submitting their rosters and their team assessments in advance. Special Olympics Maryland's office will take care of getting the teams into GMS based off of those rosters. It seems we've done that for the last couple years, and really it seemed to work well and solve the problem of rosters that change constantly, which was a huge issue the first year that I came on board, back on board as a staff member. So we'll continue to do that. So she may have another deadline in there that she'll share with the coaches in terms of getting those rosters in. Coaches webinars, I alluded to this a moment ago, or indicated the one for the bowling championship is Monday the 30th. For Winter Games, we have several set up. We already had the preseason ones for alpine and snowshoeing coaches, and then we do have one for heads of delegations tonight, actually, following this webinar, and that's there. Then the basketball preseason webinar is noted there, again, with the link. Excuse me. We may add an additional HOD webinar prior to the Athlete on Snow time trial weekend. We'll ask the heads of delegations tonight as to whether they think that would be valuable. It could be a fairly short one. Then we have, as we typically have had, pre-competition webinars for each of the sports. Those will be on February the 9th, Alpine at 7 and Snowshoe at 8. And then there's the final HOD webinar. It'll be either number 2 or potentially number 3 on the 11th. As is noted there, again, we'll be recording all of these, and assuming, knock on wood, the recording works out fine without any trouble, we'll be posting them, the recordings and links to them online as well. For basketball, again, as I mentioned, we have the basketball coaches preseason webinar tomorrow night. Melissa also has a meeting of the basketball sports management team on Thursday. That'll nail down a lot of the information, but this is just some highlights that you have there. The basketball championships are April 2nd and 3rd, again in the Frederick area. We are looking for folks to host coaches schools, whether they're basketball specific or coaching Special Olympics athletes. We'll talk about the coaching Special Olympics athletes in just a minute. But if you are interested, Melissa can work with you on clinicians and such. I know she had, I think it was close to 10 last year. We had one, I think it was the 8th of November over at Washington College with a good turnout for that. I think 5 or 6 folks showed up. So we certainly would be looking to add additional ones. And again, we will share with the coaches following the webinar, or as part of the webinar tomorrow night, but then pushing out to them as well the training opportunities that are there. I'll come back to the Howard County Basketball League in just a moment. We are looking to capture any basketball tournaments that folks are planning to hold. As we've discussed several times at the area directors meeting, it's our expectation that if you have if you are offering a training in a sport, that you should be prepared, or your area should be prepared to hold some type of competition in that sport. It could be a multi-county or a multi-area competition. It could be a half a day, it could be a full day, or it could be hosting a competition with another county, just one team against another team and such. So we are looking to capture all that. We'll talk about that some more and capture some additional competitions on Saturday at the area directors meeting, live and in person. And then I mentioned about those meetings. We are really pleased, and I hope Bob is on the phone. If not, we'll circle back later. But Howard County has the opportunity to host a basketball league similar to the soccer league that they've been hosting. And Bob, are you on the call? You may have to unmute your phone. Let's see. Is anybody else from Howard County on the call? Okay, then I can give you in a nutshell, and then if Bob is able to join us later, he can maybe give us some additional information. The league will be held at Glenelg Country School, which is the site where the 3v3 required qualifier has been hosted for the last several years, as well as the Player Development Unified qualifier has also been hosted there. And it will be a weekly, I believe he said it's Saturday afternoons it'll be held from roughly 1 till 4. They will be putting together a schedule, excuse me, of what level event or what type of event. So one Saturday it will be 5-on-5, another Saturday will be 3v3, another maybe 3v3 and some Player Development Unified, so on down the line. But they'll work it out so that every excuse me, every different level of competition or level of basketball event will be offered at some point. And it looks like they'll be able to do this for 8 or 10 weeks. So this certainly does not replace the opportunity to host competitions, but we know that this has been, this league format has been very successful in increasing the amount of competition that our soccer teams have, and we really appreciate Howard County in being able to arrange this. And again, I know that they'll be going over it in somewhat more detail tomorrow night during the basketball coaches webinar. So, and again, if Bob is able to join us tonight, we'll have him share it. If not, I'm sure we'll talk more about it on Saturday. This is just a reminder. In fact, the slide's identical to what we shared during the summer. Just a reminder that every in terms of who gets added into GMS, we've had GMS, again, hopefully all of you are aware, is our games management software, or games management system. We still hear from folks who say they didn't put somebody into GMS because they weren't going to go to the state competition. That's the wrong answer. Everybody, every athlete who is participating needs to be added into GMS, not just as a record in there, but registered as training in the particular sport that they're in. If there is an issue or a challenge with getting, because you have a huge number of folks to get in, talk to us, talk to your regional sports director. We can potentially help you in some way, as we have for Prince George's County as an example, given their very large number, literally hundreds of MATP athletes, as well as their spring games, which are not done through GMS. We can work out some ways potentially to help you with that. But every athlete needs to be registered in GMS and registered in training as training in your sport. Unified partner, so on down the line. It doesn't matter if they're going to state competition or not. It doesn't matter, quite honestly, if they've only come to one practice session. Basically, if they participated in your program, we want to count them. We're not trying to bump the numbers up artificially. We are looking to get an accurate count of how many different athletes participated in your program. It does have an impact, not just in terms of our overall numbers and reporting out, but we'll talk a little bit about the World Games selection at the tail end. I think it's on the last slide. But for the USA team that's going to that they're putting together to go to World Games will be the allocation to the different states is going to be based on how many athletes they have participating in each sport. So having those numbers accurate but comprehensive is absolutely critical to being successful with that. So please do make sure along those lines. We'll talk about census in a couple slides as well. And I'm also just kind of rolling through here. If anybody has a question and wants to stop on something, please do chime in. Again, remember to unmute your phone. This again is a repeat but just a reminder that we've had issues where we've had a significantly disproportionate number of coaches and volunteers registered for delegations given the number of athletes. In an extreme case, we've had more coaches and volunteers in a couple times registered than there are athletes from that same delegation. So we instituted this starting with summer games last year and are continuing through, but basically there are registration fees for summer and winter games, but then also for all of the tournaments, anywhere where there is lodging or meal costs or something along those lines, we will be applying a 3-to-1 ratio. The standard is, if you talk to anybody in other Special Olympics and such, the standard is 4-to-1, where 4 athletes to a single supervisory person, if you want to call them that. We're going to go to 3-to-1 to allow some additional flexibility. So basically, if you have more than a 3-to-1 ratio, if you have 10 athletes and 6 coaches, we're going to pass along the costs for the additional meeting those additional coaches. If it's a winter or summer games, it'll be the full cost for the lodging and the meals, not just the standard registration rate for those. It would be the entire cost for that. For other events, such as for kayaking and such, where we're just providing lunch, we're still going to pass along those costs to you. Again, we've had really sort of, in all honesty, ridiculous numbers of folks in some situations. We do realize that some athletes need additional supervision. Within a 3-to-1 ratio, you should be able to work that out. We're also not at all, please don't take anything here as saying that you can't bring these additional folks. You absolutely can register and bring them. We're just saying that we're going to pass the cost of having those additional folks on site along to you. There was no lunch provided at bowling, the regional tournament, so this didn't apply. For the bowling tournament coming up, where we do provide lunch for all delegation members, the one on the 6th, this will be in effect here. As is noted there, we will, following the competition registration deadline, will advise you of if you are at risk of there being additional charges. Again, you're not going to write us a check. We'll do it all using the financial system. We'll just charge you there, but we'll make sure that you know what the charges are. So you'll have the opportunity to scratch or remove any of those additional coaches or volunteers from your delegation. What we're finding also in many cases is a lot of the people that are on paper, the area may have just forgotten to scratch and they aren't intending to come. We understand that happening, but keep in mind when we're ordering meals or ordering or booking hotel rooms or whatever the case may be, we're factoring in those numbers, and so we need to improve that accuracy if we, in any way that we can, to make sure that the money that's being spent is being spent to the benefit, the greatest benefit of our athletes. And then as is noted there, in really small delegations, that'll be waived, such as if we only have 2 athletes and 1 coach. We're not going to, we hope that everyone sees us as being very reasonable here. We're not going to get too ridiculous. Also note that unified partners are not factored in either side of the ratio. This is strictly comparing coaches and volunteers to heads of delegation to athletes.
I'm sitting on a webinar. That's what you hear noise in the back.
Okay. And again, if we could please, when you're not asking a question, please mute your phone. The GMS training, we actually, honest to God, will be offering it now. Again, it's been a while since we have. Had hoped to do it a little bit earlier. But the 3 weeks of December 1st through the 18th, it'll be offered. This is for new users. We will be sending out by the end of the week a listing of the available times so folks can sign up. We do have the names of a few people. We'll include them directly in the distribution. But if you have anybody who needs to be added in or learn GMS to meet the needs of your program, now is the time to do that. We'll reassess whether there's an additional training needed in January. Typically, this training is done as a webinar or a web session, so the person should be able to have a telephone and a web screen or a web connection that works fine. They are all done as one-on-one sessions. We have tried doing group trainings with this, and being the person who has done 99% of the GMS training, I can tell you that particularly for new users, group training just does not work. Whether you're live or trying to do it by the web, in all honesty, it's a waste of time. For experienced users, that's a different story, but for new users, it's just not worth it. If the trainee can travel to headquarters, there's a possibility of doing it live or in person, but that's, again, most of these are going to be done by web. New users need to be submitted by your area director, or by you as the area director, I should say, to the regional sports director or to Kelly Cox, director of field services. The person definitely should be comfortable with computers, although I think you all have been doing pretty well with folks who have been added in recently. We hadn't gotten, as we had at the very beginning of offering GMS, where we had folks who had absolutely no idea how to use a computer. So we're doing much better with that. They must have up-to-date volunteer screenings. We will not issue an account for them. They need to have, again, their own computer and a good broadband connection. And while it appears that we do have the ability to use Macintosh or Apple computers, the Windows operating system is generally preferred. Also, I should have put this on here, if the individual will be using a computer that has any kind of firewall issues, such as a work computer, we've run into this with folks who are going to be working from their offices or from their school building, where there may be we're going to need some extra time to be sure that that works out okay. Too many times we've tried to do the GMS training and get there and we can't get it going. So anyhow, so by the end of the week you'll get a listing of all the available times, and you can sit with instructions as well, and you can submit them for that. In addition, on Saturday, we may email this ahead of time, but on Saturday we just want to get a verification or a validation of all the GMS users who are listed still as active users. We're sure that several of the folks are actually no longer involved or filling that function, and we want to close up that account for them. So just be prepared to be able to tell us on Saturday or via email when we send this out who is involved or who actually should or should not be having access to GMS in the network. Okay, we've talked about the coach concussion certification a few times. We've had a webinar for folks so that you can offer it live using the CD-ROMs that we've provided to you. The day of truth is coming, basically effective January 1. All coaches, that's head coaches, that's assistant coaches, whatever, any coach must have completed concussion training prior to starting coaching. We'll be sending another batch out or reminders out to coaches with this information so that they can go through and do it. And thank you to those folks who have been pushing it with your own areas. We've been made it a key point of each of the coach webinars for the last several preseason webinars, and we'll continue to do so. Just as a reminder, none of the stuff below the to meet requirement, none of that's changed. But there are two courses. The CDC course is the one that we recommend. It's shorter, and it's easier to access. The NFHS is a fine course. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just a little bit cumbersome. You, in essence, have to purchase it from NFHS for no charge, but you have to go through the process of using their shopping cart, and it's a little bit more cumbersome. And then coaches send their certificate that they get or their evidence of completing the course if they're doing the NFHS to coaches@somd.org. It's good for 3 years. Again, the courses are free, and then as is noted, you have the CD-ROMs that you can use. Should also point out that thank you to Steve Whiting, and then as a follow-on, John Follett, two of our coaching Special Olympics athletes instructors, who have, this is at Steve's initiative, have worked out and have integrated coaching, the coach concussion certification course into the coaching Special Olympics athletes course when they've offered it live. And so we'll, where appropriate and possible, we'll continue to do that, and so folks can get it all taken care of, both the coaching Special Olympics and the concussion training at the same time. For those of you also, there are reports that are available online on GMS so that you can generate your own reports. We will be continuing to send reports out, or actually I should say for coaching or for the concussion, we'll be starting to send those out. We haven't done that yet because there's not that many in there. But those reports are available to you. The webinar where we went through that has been recorded and is available on MySOMD. The link is. And if we need to do another one live or a couple brush-ups, we can certainly do that as well. Coach certification status, we'll have an updated roster of listing all the courses of folks who have taken, as well as the certification status no later than Thanksgiving, or the day or so before Thanksgiving. And again, we'll continue to update records. We're coming up on the kind of the last batch of sports, that being alpine skiing and snowshoeing, to where we've been instituting or applying the requirement that all head coaches have sports certification. As we've said numerous times, the actual requirement by Special Olympics International is that all coaches become certified. We phased it in with head coaches first. This is the last batch right now. And then, as is noted there, we will be phasing in or adding in the actual requirement for all coaches, beginning with the summer game sports, that being aquatics, athletics, bocce, cheerleading, and softball. We fully expect that we'll get another little barrage of folks who, in all honesty, really weren't paying attention to the previous communications and didn't notice that they maybe attended or got certification years ago, and it just doesn't show up there. We will be doing kind of that cleanup process that we've been doing all along, so folks will have one more opportunity there, because again, we found very clearly that really people aren't paying attention to it until it's something that's really important for them, and that's just human nature. There's nothing wrong with that per se. So we're going to try to accommodate that. So again, we'll have some additional seminars or webinars as needed just on the whole process, but I think we've had some pretty good success with the head coaches, and we'll continue to have them continue to roll this out for all the coaches. Should also note that, as is noted here, and we'll talk about this some more at a future time as we get closer to doing it for all coaches, it's not the case that the minute somebody decides they're going to be or volunteers to be an assistant coach, that they immediately have to get all the certification requirements met. There's actually a phase-in process for new assistant coaches where there's a couple things, just kind of a series of steps that they need to do each year, so it's built in. We haven't been going into detail on these conversations with that because for head coaches, they need to have it all done given their level of responsibility. And quite honestly, trying to talk about that phase-in while we're trying to get the point across of everyone needs to become certified just adds to the confusion. So as we're phasing it in or we're getting into the assistant coaches, we'll talk more about that and spell it out. But again, that's really for new coaches who are completely new to the program. Scheduling coaches training sessions, we are definitely looking for more, and thank you to those areas that have hosted coaching Special Olympics athletes or other sport training sessions. As I noted on the basketball slide, Melissa is very eager to host trainings for basketball, as are all the sport leads for each of the different sports that we have. And as the sports management teams become more and more active and formed, we saw that on the previous slide or a few slides back, they'll be integrated or heavily involved with the sport-specific training. As I mentioned earlier, we have several folks who are certified or whatever to be instructors for coaching Special Olympics athletes. I believe between staff and volunteers we're upwards of about 20. If there is a need to certify some additional folks for that purpose, we certainly can look at that. There really hasn't been a need for that based on the volume so far, but that may increase. So if you're interested and available, your area for hosting one, it's pretty easy. Just contact your regional sports director well in advance, several weeks if possible. We need you to arrange a physical space. Want to be sure that we have at least 5 to 7 participants. And actually for coaching Special Olympics athletes, again, kudos to everybody here. We've been having sessions of up to 30 to 40 in some cases for that. Almost gets a little bit too big there. But that's would be really great to continue to do so. We will help advertise that. It'll go on the sports calendar in the coaching coaches training section that's in there. Your regional sports director can help you with clinicians, materials, so on down the line.
Excuse me, Mike. This is Bob. I have a question.
Oh, good, Bob. You're on. We'll circle back to the basketball league in just a minute then, after we finish the coach training.
Sorry, I thought it started at 7. My apologies.
That's quite all right.
Question on this slide. The concussion training content being built into the coaching Special Olympic athletes training, does that then qualify that individual for having satisfied both?
Correct.
Of the requirements?
Yes, that's the whole intent with that. Yes. And Steve, I don't know if you were here when I mentioned that, Steve Whiting and then John Follett sort of worked that out. It's at the end of the session as well, so that anybody who has already completed the concussion session could depart early if they needed to.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. And then just down at the bottom there, and I'm not sure if anybody on the call has participated in any of these, we will, particularly for team sports, but for some of the larger individual sports, we've had a good deal of success with what we're calling these master coaches sessions, which, as we were rolling out this, actually us adhering to this long-standing requirement for coaches training, we were also given, all Special Olympics chapters were given, the flexibility to offer training in a variety of ways. So one of the things that we launched are these sessions for very experienced coaches who you as an area director have validated or confirmed that they have the experience necessary and know their sport. But basically giving them the opportunity to connect through a web and conference call session to talk to other coaches of that level of experience. And really, they've become they're just, in essence, structured, facilitated conversations about the sport and coaching the sport. I was really impressed with the one we had for softball, where it got into some heavy-duty problem solving for a coach who was experiencing a particular issue, and really got the input from some valuable input from other coaches that are there. So we'll continue to do that and offer that as well. This is just the updated training that's available through ASAP. We'll have more of that as we go through and get the information out to coaches on doing it. So that's the core. Before I get into these additional items that I wanted to talk about, Bob, do you want to take a couple minutes? I gave everybody sort of the Reader's Digest version of what you're thinking about for the basketball league at Glenelg Country School. But if you want to fill folks in, that would be great. And thank you again for stepping up, for Howard County for stepping up for this.
Oh, sure, no problem. Yeah, we've got lucky this year and got some additional gym space for our basketball training, which actually freed up some of our time at Glenelg Country School, which is a great venue. Those of you that have been there for some of the competitions, I know we have a 3v3 required competition out there, along with a 5v5 player development competition. It's a great venue, private school, nice facilities, 2 full gyms, fairly new gym. It's less than 6 years old, I think. So it's a great place. So with the additional space that we have now, we're going to offer league play out at Glenelg Country School every Saturday from 1 to 5. So it's going to be similar to the soccer and flag football league play that we've offered at Cedar Lane Park, where it's basically open. I'm hoping people can register through Mike or someone at the state office, and hopefully they could set up divisions based on knowledge of teams in the past and whatnot. But we're going to kind of do a round robin based on levels. This all begins on January 9th and goes through March the 12th. We couldn't get the 2 weeks prior to the state competition, unfortunately. One of those is is spring break, and another one they had some school event going on. But other than that, from January 9th through the 12th of March, excluding January 30th, which is the plunge, we have league play every day. So we're going to start it off with 5v5 player development. They were the ones that were willing to step up so early in the season. Most of the other coordinators for us didn't want to start on January 9th, but they decided they could. And then from player development, we just rotate through our 3v3. On January 16th, we have traditional and player development. There's 4 courts that we can use for that, so we think we can handle a lot of teams in that 4-hour period. 5v5 traditional on the 23rd, and then it kind of rotates back through February and March. So we have a tentative schedule put together, and if there are conflicts or somebody has some input based on other local competitions, and we're certainly flexible at this stage of the game to modify those if needed. We do also have the 3v3 tournament and the 5v5 player development tournament on schedule, and that's on February 27th and 28th. Right now we have both levels of 3v3, traditional and player development, on the 27th, and skills and 5v5 player development on the 28th. So that's an all-day event where we have the gym from 8 to 4, or 8 to 5 actually. So just a great opportunity, great venue to take advantage of. I know our soccer coaches and whatnot loved having the league play, and we had some great games out there at Cedar Lane Park along with our flag football team. So just like to get that same type of format going here for basketball. So that's about it.
Great. Does anybody have any questions for Bob related to the basketball league? And again, Bob, that's just huge thanks. I know this will be a really nice addition to the basketball season.
Hey, Bob, I take it you plan on having officials at all the events?
Right. Yesterday at bowling, I spoke with Melissa, Mike, and Nate about that, and we hope to get the same set of officials that have been helping us out for for ages. And Spike and a number of the other ones have been great, the Special Olympics. So hopefully we can get a course set. If we don't get those officials, we have the Glenelg Country School girls team that's going to be volunteering every Saturday for various duties, for scorekeeping, for just helping to organize the event that day. And we could, if we had to, throw those folks in there as a unofficial official ref type of thing. But hopefully we can come up with some real officials.
And Mike, these will count as qualifiers?
Yes, they will.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep. Yeah, they would definitely count for any competitions. I would also point out, with as is the case with soccer and flag football, actually more so soccer, some of the weekend, I mean, there's a limited number given the space that's there. It can't accommodate every team every Saturday or for every session. So if there are particular dates that you need to go to once the schedule is out, or that your teams need to go to, sign up early, and otherwise they may not be able to accommodate you. Again, there's just a limited capacity given the number of courts and the time that's available. Typically what we've been able to do for soccer, and I would assume we would also do for basketball, is if your team is coming, that we work to get typically 2 games that they can play. Sometimes it's more than 2, but try to guarantee at least 2 games. So, cool. Okay. Then this is the last slide, other than additional questions and such. But a couple, several different points here. A couple just to point out, and then a couple for some discussion for folks. One is, as many of you have seen, it takes a bit longer on getting the volunteer screening completed, and with some additional flexibility in terms of how the screening can be done, that seems to be that's still going to be an issue. And just want to give you a heads up that that may have an impact on setting deadlines, particularly the deadlines around when forms have to be in, and just need folks to be really judicious and prompt. There's no reason to hold on to an application and wait to send it in. If it's complete, go ahead and send it in. Let me rephrase that. If it's complete and your GMS person has created the person in GMS, if it's somebody totally new, don't wait to send it in. There's really no reason to hold off on sending it in. I know that Rhonda has pointed out, and she may touch on it. She'll be with us on Saturday at the area directors meeting. But she's getting some forms in that were signed 6-8 months prior to that. Now I realize in some cases it may be that the parent or the athlete or the volunteer held onto the form and just turned it in at that time, and we certainly realize that happens. But the number that come in like that it appears to be that there may be a pattern with some folks just holding on to forms and not sending them in. But get them in. It'll help with that. But just as a heads up, we're not going to take any deadline that we currently have out there and have it announced and change it. But as we go forward, we may need to reassess that. Then we have a mention about our sports management teams, and one of the roles of the sports management teams is to really look at the sport and look at the nature of it and what we need to do to improve it. One of the most active teams along that line has been the powerlifting team. And amongst other things, one of the things that they're suggesting is to move powerlifting from the fall, where it's currently contested as part of the Fall Sports Festival, and move it to a winter sport, kind of mirroring to some degree Winter Games in terms of the competition time frame. So looking at a time frame for competition towards the end of February, beginning of March. This would not happen for 2016. Well, this would mean that if we went down this road, the next competition for powerlifting there wouldn't be one during 2016. It would be the winter, like a February or March of 2017. And the team, the powerlifting sports management team, which is composed of several coaches in addition to some other folks, is well aware that that's the phase-in that would probably happen. The rationale is to give a longer training time and to sort of mirror the sport. The sports committee of the board of directors will be talking about this, and actually several of the other, particularly the next session, point that's on there about a fourth sports season. But just wanted to get, if anybody has any kind of gut sense, just some initial feedback on the possibility of moving that. The competition could be a separate standalone competition by itself. It could potentially in some way be integrated into winter games, not on the hill, but back at the hotel or something like that. That's not decided. There's all sorts of financial things that would need to be worked out and space issues. But any initial thoughts that folks have, pro, con, or just not sure if it's pro or con, but just a question or input along those lines. And again, remember to unmute your phone if you have a comment.
Mike, this is Frank.
Hey, Frank.
I would be concerned that they were held at the same time as winter games, because I think we have a large overlap, or at least some overlap of athletes,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be another thing that would cut down on their opportunities. I'm not sure if it would conflict on practice dates. That might not be an issue, but certainly having the games on the same day would probably be a big issue.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and your practice dates, you would be able to work that out. You know, that's how you operate. You can decide when you do that, of course. But, okay, that's a good point. Any other?
My question, is the purpose to extend the season as opposed to just moving it from the fall to the winter?
Yes, I believe that that's their intent, is to have a longer season than, I mean, realistically, just given, as much as a lot of programs try to get their fall sports started during the summer, and some have success at it as well, I should point out. The reality is that many of the powerlifting programs don't start until after Labor Day, and there's concern that powerlifting is a sport from both a safety standpoint, but also just getting the benefits that the athlete would out of powerlifting would really work well for a longer season. In addition, it's, of course, an indoor sport, and that just makes a little bit more sense to do that during the winter time frame. That's, I believe, their rationale.
Okay.
Any thoughts with that? I mean, is that extending the season, having it?
Well, my coach has made that comment on several occasions that he didn't feel that the time period for the training was enough for the athlete to adequately develop.
Right.
So I could see where they want to go with that.
Okay. Any other thoughts? And this is not your only opportunity to contribute, so we'll, again, this is something that is coming from the powerlifting sports management team and the sports committee, of which that's a combination of some staff members, a couple board members, and then also there are 3 area directors. Well, Bob Baker is on that committee currently, Greg Mead is on that committee currently, Mike Myers is on that committee, as is Rennie Springwell from Montgomery County, and I may be forgetting somebody else from who's actively involved with the area at the area level, but those are the ones that immediately come to mind. So we'll also be looking, I should point out, and I think Nate will be discussing it on Saturday. We'll be looking to kind of expand and get some additional individuals to participate on that committee as we try to get it a little bit reinvigorated, let's say, going forward. So another issue that group will be looking at is whether we need to or want to add a 4th sports season. There had been some discussion about that a couple years ago. What's prompting it here, or the timing of examining it right now, is that we, after we set the date for the kayaking competition for next year, for 2016, we received a very strong, well, let me back up. For those of you who don't know, Washington College, who has hosted for the last 2 years both the kayaking time trials and the kayaking championship, just does a marvelous job and is very supportive. They came to us making a really strong request for us to consider moving it to the end of August, basically before Labor Day. I think what precipitated that was particularly us having to go this year, unfortunately, with rescheduling the competition date due to the bad weather that was that weekend that was originally scheduled. And it ran into some conflicts with some of their other rowing and crew teams and sailing teams. And so they've requested us just to kind of re-examine that and thought if we can do this, that would be helpful to them. If we were to do that, we would consider also potentially moving golf to that same time frame with the competition, possibly the same weekend, similar to what was originally planned for this year. So that would be sort of those two sports would be the immediate ones that would be part of that summer season. We may consider, again, the sports committee would look at this, but may consider if there's something else we should look at for that time frame. The training window would be that's the question mark there of, probably like a June to August time frame, figuring 3 months for training. Obviously, we're not talking everybody has to start on June 1, but that would be the general window. So just want to get some feedback, some thoughts. Is this a great idea? Is this a horrible idea? Does it just not matter for this? Again, this isn't something we had planned on addressing right at this point in time, other than the fact that, again, one of our really very supportive facilities has brought it up as a strong request. So what are your thoughts?
This is Bob from Howard County.
Hey, Bob.
We don't do kayaking, so I can't really speak for it, but things that I've heard in the past is that the further you move into the fall, the tougher it gets because of just water temperature and whatnot. So I would think this would make sense for kayaking to have it a total summer season for that. And you could probably, I guess we don't do sailing anymore officially, but you could probably somehow tie that together. My concern would be with golf. I know locally here we get a golf course for the day once the NFL season starts because their business goes down dramatically at that point.
Even this year, Bob? The way both local teams are playing?
We had it in week 1, so we still had high hopes then, Mike.
I see, okay.
So that would be my only concern would be for golf to tie this into that. We may have a tougher time, at least with that one course. We could look elsewhere potentially, but I don't know if the other tournaments that we have tournaments throughout September and August, competitions, so some folks do get courses in August, obviously, so it could potentially work.
And
vacations and whatnot as well is an issue.
Yeah, I should point out this isn't something that we're forcing or whatever. We could potentially move kayaking by itself and keep golf where it is. It's just so please don't anything that I've said take it as it's a fait accompli and we're going down this road. Just want to see if we can accommodate the request from Washington College and see if this is another opportunity.
I think it would be a big. This is Don Bewick with St. Mary's. I think it would be if you just moving a couple of sports out of the fall would make things a little bit easier for the athletes that do a lot of sports.
Okay. And
Mike, this is Ruth from Frederick.
Hey, Ruth.
We have a bunch of golfers and a bunch of kayakers. We would be ecstatic if you could move kayaking back to where it was initially or close to because of the weather and everything. It just gets to be hard. But also with the golfers, we've got some that do both. The downside is if you have state competition 2 days in a row for those two sports, you're going to kill an awful lot of athletes. So if you could space golfing even just a week or two or something. So, I mean, you're going to kill some athletes and parents, but it's really hard back to back. But, if you have to move them, I mean, kayaking, we would love if you would get it out of October season.
Okay.
But just kind of think, don't put them back to back like that. It's a killer.
Okay.
Hey, Mike. Alan with St. Mary's.
Hey, Alan, and then it sounded like we had somebody else after Alan. So go ahead, Alan.
Hey, I just want to chime in there. I would love to see kayaking move to that summer season. It just opens up so many more opportunities for us. And we can, because we still do sailing, we could host that qualifier there, make it a true regatta that we did years ago. And it really just falls more into line with our athletes and their schedules.
Okay. Thank you. It sounded like someone else was starting to speak when Alan started as well.
Mike Myers, how are you, Mike?
Hey, Mike.
I am all in favor of early August for the kayak event. That makes life that much easier with keeping athletes on. At least for me, because most of our athletes are in school through the month of July. So, with our training schedule, it makes my life that much nicer.
And just to clarify, we're saying late August, not early August for the competition.
Either way.
Okay. Yeah, we'd be looking.
Either way, it still makes it better.
Yeah, we would be looking at the weekend before Labor Day for kayaking. That's specifically what Washington College has suggested. So.
All right.
And should also point out that works out for Jack Brosius, who many of you know. Jack's been instrumental in the facility there and the course and the kayaking competition too. Any other thoughts on that? Okay. The next point is more just a matter of informational. We touched on the World Winter Games, I think just in passing in the past, but they are coming up. They are March 14th through 25th of 2017 in Austria. I will not attempt to pronounce all those cities or towns. We are waiting on the allocations from Special Olympics USA. We have submitted a request for alpine, snowshoe, cross-country, and figure skating. As I indicated earlier in the conversation when we were talking about some making sure we get everybody into GMS, they are using the number of athletes who each state is training in each sport as one of the criteria for determining how they allocate whatever spots they get. As of our last conversation with the folks at Special Olympics USA, or Special Olympics North America, they hadn't received their allocations from the World Games as yet. That was a few weeks ago, though, so they may have gotten them since then. But we have submitted requests for that. We do not expect to get all of those, and quite honestly, I don't know that we could afford it. We requested a male and female spot for each of those four sports. It's quite expensive. We would not likely be able to afford all 8 spots if we were even remotely lucky enough to get all of them. But just want to keep you posted. We are also, since there was a challenge with this for the summer games, the summer World Games, we are attuned and keeping track on when the applications need to be in for coaches. We haven't had anything yet. They're still waiting on getting the allocation information for the different sports of what they'll have before they go down that road. So we will certainly share that as it becomes available. The selection would be based on the 2015 Winter Games. And in fact, they're actually going back and using the 2014 census data when they were looking at, because the 2015 census data is not currently available. That won't be in until March. But anyhow, they're looking at, there would be some type of a training camp at some point, I would assume early in 2016 for this. So there may be some fairly rapid selection process going on. But again, this is the best information that we've got. Or they could do something, I guess, in the fall or very early winter of 2016, a year from now, roughly. But that's what we know at this point. Wanted to point out, I hope everybody saw the somewhat sad news that we have of that Tommy George will be leaving us. Actually, tomorrow will be his last day. Tommy has been a great asset for the organization, and particularly in his, where I should say you have seen his impact most visibly with the golf program and working closely with the golf coaches and the golf sports management team in really elevating that. There's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes that you don't get to see, where he's been very instrumental in that, in improving those things. He's moving on to a really good opportunity, also still within the sports world, and that was covered or at least mentioned in the email that we sent out. But anyhow, he will be, tomorrow is his last day. If you have the opportunity to drop him a line or give him a call, please do so and express your appreciation if you haven't already done so. With that, we are actually, we were doing this before Tommy decided to move on, but we're taking that position of sports director and converting that or transforming that into an additional regional sports director. You should have received last week the notice from Rhonda. I have not seen the resumes as yet or the applications, but we will be looking to review those very quickly. I believe the deadline to get that in may be today as the cutoff. So as we go through that process, I really can't talk at this point in terms of how it will impact the areas, but what it would do is, instead of having Sam in the Baltimore area and then Melissa, Anger, and Nick splitting the rest of the state, Sam would still be the Baltimore area, and we would have a third person along with Nick and Melissa Anger splitting the remainder of the state into three. Similarly, we would reallocate or reassign who is the sport lead for the various sports as well, so there would be a little bit of juggling with that. We would be looking to try to minimize the amount of upheaval. We know a lot of you have formed solid relationships with Nick and Melissa, and would want to minimize the disruption with that. But that said, I can't tell you at this point. We probably won't even know by Saturday as we're looking through stuff. But as soon as we have some sense of how that'll actually look in the end, we'll certainly let you know. And we are looking to move quickly on making a selection of the new staff person in this role, and to introduce him or her to you as soon as we can. So then the last point I wanted to make, and then we can open it up for at least a few minutes of any additional questions that folks might have, is the 2015 census. We are starting on that now. We will be sending out to you in the next couple of weeks rosters or lists of everybody who you indicated to us was training in each sport. We would very much appreciate you sending that on or having somebody review that, your head coach for those sports, and seeing who was missing. That it always happens that there are a batch of folks who, for whatever reason, did not get into the computer system. These numbers, in addition to giving us a good tracking of how we're doing, and hopefully the program continues to grow significantly. We've had a series of years of nice significant growth as we've gone forward, and we want to continue that, but it also really gives us a good sense of how we can improve the program and where we have some opportunities. So please do, when you get that, please do share that with whoever is appropriate within your area for each sport, and review that. And we'd be looking, while we're certainly looking primarily, our primary concern is going to be athlete participation, we absolutely also want to be sure that we're capturing all of your unified partners for each sport, all of your coaches, assistant coaches, and also your volunteers, your sport volunteers who are working with each of the sports that you offer. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple weeks. It'll probably come out right after the Thanksgiving holiday, and you can start getting that out so that we can turn that around relatively quickly and be looking at that information. So that said, that's all I wanted to cover here. Again, the purpose of tonight was mainly to cover some of the basic stuff so that when we do convene with the area directors in person, we can spend more of that time with discussion and actual interaction rather than some of the more kind of brain dump information that we've been able to cover here. There is another webinar of this type tomorrow night. It was not ideal to do them back to back, and we recognize that. It's just schedules would not allow us to spread them out as we have the last couple times. But tomorrow night we'll cover the program and some the state of the program and financials and that type of thing. I don't know if Kelly or Nate, if you're on the call, if you wanted to give a little snapshot of what to expect tomorrow, and then I'll open it up to questions. We have about 5 or so minutes that we can ask for additional questions. So Nate or Kelly, anything to highlight for tomorrow night?
Hey, Mike, it's Nate. Thanks. Yeah, tomorrow night will be starting out with, excuse me, George, going over the state of the program as it relates to year-to-date actuals. On the finance side, he'll also give you an update as where we are in getting the budgets approved by the finance and full board, who have been meeting and will finally meet this Friday. So we'll give you updates on that. It'll talk about what does the budget look like for 2016? Is there any impact there for all of our programs, et cetera? And then we'll talk about some timely development opportunities. Giving Tuesday is just weeks away, and we've got some opportunities that can impact the bottom line for the area programs. We want to make sure you have an opportunity to hear some of that information. There'll be more of that as well on Saturday, but we want to make sure we try to put some of that stuff in your hands as soon as possible, as you'll start to get a lot of emails from Sue Jacobs in the next couple days relating to Giving Tuesday, so we want to give you a heads up on that stuff.
Okay, so nice little teaser for tomorrow night. So that said, if there's any questions, I do need to say that we only got a few additional minutes for this because we have the HOD, Winter Games HOD webinar starting right up at 8 o'clock, and I'll need a few minutes to get set for that. But that said, any questions on anything we've talked about or I've shared tonight, or any other sports-related question that I perhaps can help with? And again, we'll have the opportunity on Saturday as well. But anything?
This is Bob. I have a quick one on the previous slide. You mentioned the World Games, 4 sports, but we only hosted 2 sports at the 2015 qualifying games. Cross country and figure skating were both locally popular, I believe. So,
right.
How are you gonna qualify for those 2?
If we were lucky enough to get those spots, cross country would utilize the results from. They go to the Pennsylvania competition or Pennsylvania games, I believe. And then figure skating goes to some, I think they go to Delaware. Nate, you can clarify that if I'm incorrect on those. But if we were lucky enough to get a spot in either of those sports, we would use the results from those competitions.
Okay, thanks.
No, good question. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, we weren't hiding a cross-country or figure skating competition at Whitetail behind on the other side of the mountain that nobody saw. So.
Bob, and that's consistent with kind of the decision we had talked about as we use the locally popular sport sailing. While we won't hold a state competition, if there is an event that meets the standards, that we would still ask for a slot. We're obviously not going to choose those slots before the state competition slots, so there's a secondary layer of kind of checks that we'll go through, but that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, well, as I mentioned at the beginning, and has been on most of the slides here, we have been recording the session tonight. We will send out tomorrow both the slides and a link to the recording. So anybody who was unable to attend, or if there's anybody, I know this is scintillating and gripping, watching and listening. So if you want to share it with the rest of your team, your leadership team, that's available for you as well to do. Thank you very much for your attention, your participation, and look forward to hearing many of you tomorrow night and seeing many of you in person on Saturday. Have a great night, and we'll see you soon.